Hello everybody and welcome back to the Enterprise Dish. This is going to be a fun episode because Microsoft has blessed upon us a couple pieces of news, some relating to Windows, some relating to their partner program, and there is no better guest to talk about both of those, Mr. Aaron up in the Seattle region. How is it going today?
It's going great. I really like the expression blessed us. I guess it gives us a lot to talk about,
Yep.
but I think that a lot of our listeners are maybe looking for what's in disguise in that, the blessing in disguise,
Yeah.
perhaps, because I think that there are probably a lot of people cursing and lamenting and hand wringing and chin scratching and all of the things, right, that need to go on in order to sort out some of these changes. So
Yeah,
it's going to be crazy.
there's business challenges, there's IT Pro related challenges. I think this episode is going to have it all, but why don't we kick it off with 19H2. Microsoft has finally, and this one, to be honest, was really weird, mostly because we've been hearing the exact same message Microsoft announced for months, but they were just sitting on it, and I don't understand why, but at a very high level, Microsoft has detailed 19H2, which is really just going to be kind of a patch update and all that. It's nothing major, not a big surprise there, but what the big surprise is if you have installed May 2019 update, the 19H2 update is going to show up more just like a traditional patch rather than, say, a feature update. But just to keep it interesting, if you were coming from anything other than May 2019, it's going to install like a feature update and take over the whole machine, your files. Hey, what are your thoughts on this one, Aaron?
I think that they're just trying to straighten it out. I think that's what's going on, is that, boy, this really looks and smells and feels a lot like the old service pack days.
Yeah, it does.
Right? Even the language they use, and I printed out some language from the blog, that the next feature update for Windows 10, known in the Windows Insider program as 19H2, will be a scope set of features for select performance improvements. This is the important part. Performance improvements, enterprise features, and quality enhancements. Right? I mean, that sounds a lot like our service packs of old. And so, I think there are a handful of things going on. Mm-hmm. One, there is a recognition that this twice a year feature update thing is fraught with problems. It's hard to do and is twice a year too much. And I think that this is, without saying as many words, exactly that. Twice a year is too much. We can't keep up. We can't lay out as much as fast as we thought we could and have it be sustainable at a quality level, right? You run into the problems that we saw earlier of, yes, there are grumblings in the community about, files being overwritten or files being deleted, but it's not being upvoted through the, in that nice modern social way that everything is, this digital democracy. And so it didn't get visibility and then got into the wild and So, they're saying, okay, well, how do we slow this down and make this manageable in a way that's going to be sustainable? So I think this is a step toward that. I think this hybrid mode of, okay, you on the May update then will have this more benign kind of patch, essentially, kind of process. Everyone else will have the whole kind of flatten and reload process, or the more onerous install is just getting things caught up. And I think it'll converge, and that it'll be more like the way it used to be. We'll see a big update and once a year, and then sort of the patching, if you will, performance improvement related and things like that, more of the service pack later in the year. There's been some discussion internally. Is this going to become sort of a TikTok kind of situation? The tick is the big, you're getting actual features and new apps. And then the talk is cleaning house and making sure everything's working correctly and so on and so forth. To me, intuitively, seems a lot more related, as we like to talk about a lot. This undertaking is epic and, audacious and seemingly sustainable to do twice a year actual feature updates. The reality is probably really not sustainable, and so what do you do? This seems like a reasonable compromise. I mean, I don't know what's your guys' dialogue been like internally.
So here's the one big wrench into all this, and maybe it's not even a wrench at all. Maybe it's a small screwdriver or whatever you want to call it. So I called Microsoft as soon as they made this announcement. I dialed up Mr. Microsoft and I said, "Is this the new cadence going forward?" They will not commit to it. They will not commit that this is what it's going to be going forward. Now, the obvious thing could be like, hey, maybe they haven't fully decided and they're just going to try this out and that's what they're going to do. Or maybe they really do have more bigger feature updates planned going. We don't know yet. So the internal dialogue, mostly among like myself and Paul and Mary Jo and many others, is like, okay, is this the new normal? And unfortunately, we're still waiting. I think we all hope it's the new normal. I mean, you raised a lot of good points. As you were talking, my only regret with this podcast, other than starting it earlier, which would resolve this issue, is I would have loved to have gotten your vantage point back when they announced Windows 10 and just walk through this entire process. Because for people who don't know what Aaron's company does, they do really dang good, I was going to use a different word there, provisioning of new hardware and images and all that. So Aaron has a very unique vantage point when it comes to this kind of stuff, and to walk through like, it's one of those things. I think in a couple of years we'll look back at this and be like, what was going on? And your company was at the heart of this tangled mess, trying to help your clients get through it.
Right. And the reality is our perspective, our opinion headed into Windows 10 was that, it's just a nice way to make to not have to make a new product name all the time, that it's still going to be, every so often it will look and behave like a whole new product. But this was just another way of managing things that kind of aligns to the modern way of consuming software, drives to more of a SaaS process, which is obviously what Microsoft is trying to drive to, even with the operating system. But that the way that it's going to work for most of us who are in this industry is it's going to be the same as it ever was. And moreover, that from our kind of selfish perspective in terms of what we do at a deployment and OS provisioning level, that the process really should be the same, and that you should treat each of these major updates as a net new, which is daunting for a lot of IT people. But the way that our stuff works, it's really not that much different, and it's a little bit safer and cleaner to do it, to basically re-image with each one of these updates, assuming that you choose to do it, which means you're basically reinstalling Windows at least once a year, which, is not necessarily a bad practice. It's not ideal in some ways. I certainly find it disruptive for my own work. It's like a half a day-ish or a morning that I spend, kind of reacclimating to my environment, or reconfiguring it down to the way that I'm most productive, as I'm sure it is for most, kind of serious PC workers, which is a lot of people in the world. So, and I guess part of it for us too is, where does it go from here? And I think that the notion that whoever you spoke to, whether it was a PR person or a program management person or a marketing person, they don't want to close the door on themselves. They probably don't want to limit themselves by saying, yeah, this is the new normal, and then have it not be. Because then what do? Oh, well, we told Brad, and Brad and his team are all saying this, and now it's all over the internet as being this new normal, when we're gonna, we realize learning this through this fast learning process that now, we actually need to do one major release and two update releases. And so it's a little bit different than we thought. And now our foot's in our mouth, no matter how benign it might seem. So I think that's this very mature organization being calculated and cautious. I think more than anything. I suspect maybe this isn't the new normal, but the new normal is going to look an awful lot more like this than the old way.
Yeah.
Right. That no matter what, whether it's, tick and talk, or whether, it might be some permutation of this, but it's going to be more, kind of major and minor and cleanup and fix than it's going to be, we're going to blow your mind with 2 big updates a year, and you're going to get tons of value from this. And it's going to, you're going to get more and more productive throughout the year, every year, forever. Well,
that's a big order, right? They pretty much set themselves up to fail, right? They said we're going to be doing, they went from, what was it, like 3 and in some case 5-year update cycles of major Windows releases to shipping stuff every 6 months, which is audacious. I give them credit for trying to go down that route, but then to also build and have a pipeline of features that's actually going to not just change the color of a taskbar, but actually increase productivity, or these big promises. It is incredibly hard to do.
Yeah, and I think the thing, it's probably seemed, and may in a lot of ways still seem. I mean, then part of the thing that they might be arguing as well internally is, no, don't commit to this being the new normal, because eventually we'd like this twice a year thing to actually be, major updates and have this be the way it goes, and it's just not possible yet. So that's another side of this, but this is coming from this modern context of continuous release and agile development, rapid iteration, and internally you've got a behemoth like the Office organization that does, through Office 365, releases weekly. You don't even know that they're going on. They're tuning and tweaking and releasing literally nearly constantly. It is at an insane pace. The people I know over there who are on those teams, characterize it in this very kind of workman-like manner of, we're always adding stuff, we're always releasing stuff. It's just that the things that are coming out are so small, you wouldn't even ever know until there are a bunch of really small things that now is just the way that you work. And I think that is part of what's informed this Windows thinking of, hey, we can pattern it. It can't be every week. Could it be every month? No, it definitely can't be every month. We got Patch Tuesday, blah, 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 blah. Okay, a couple times a year? Yeah, that seems definitely doable. Okay, fine. But then when you start kind of thinking about the way that this is digested and what you're tweaking being this platform that powers so much, high risk, much higher risk than, a couple tweaks to what used to be the Exchange server and now is just the way that you consume mail, and it's all coming on through the cloud, and an update is as quick as the next week when they clean up, maybe a little mess that they made, but it was so benign nobody really noticed except for this one organization, and we were able to take care of them and fix their problem on the fly. It's not really like that with Windows. So I think it's a recalibration of the modern dev and release paradigm and reconciling that with this monster that is Windows, not only a monster in terms of the code base, who's using it, the way it's being used, the install base and the extent to which all of this is happening is, I think colors this decision and what's going on and the direction it's going in as well.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to watch as we see the next update actually start to materialize, see if they really do put out a change log other than just kind of like patches and updates, right? They left that nugget in there that, hey, there might be features in there, but if they are, they got to be small because they've only got 2-ish months to test it, and I'm not expecting anything big other than just kind of buttoning it up a little bit.
Absolutely. I think you're exactly right. And I think, this kind of notion that, the creators update was a fun one that we bandied about internally, kind of jokingly that, okay, this is the creators update because it has 3D paint in it or whatever it was, right? And so it really is that what makes this a creators update? Oh, okay. Let's get real here and be honest about what's possible when you're dealing with something that plays out at this scale, with this degree of exposure, all those things. It's more than trivial. Even the most trivial thing can be way more than trivial. And thinking about even this month's patches, right? I mean, there was like a fix for VPN, a couple 0 days and all the stuff we normally talk about and concerning, and cool. There's this fix for VPN that's such an unusual edge case, but Windows is so big and so widely adopted. Are there millions of customers who have that edge case? Probably. Tens of millions potentially, right? We don't. It's not a risk to us at all, but for the people who operate that way, man, that's impactful, right? And it could bring you to your knees. So gnarly.
Yeah, we will see. But there's another big change that Microsoft has announced. It's not so much related to Windows, and I'm curious if this impacts you, but Microsoft announced through a pretty quiet little update that they have a program called Internal Use Rights, where if you are a Microsoft partner, they allow you to use their other software, get proficiency in it. That way it's easier to sell things that you use, right? Internally, that makes logical sense. Well, Microsoft says unless you have a competency in a particular program, you're going to have to start paying for some of that stuff. And for some companies, this could mean thousands of dollars additional expenditure each month overnight. Now, Mr. Aaron, does this impact Smart Deploy? I mean, you guys obviously work very close on the Windows side, but how this is ahead of, by the way, Microsoft's partner conference, which takes place next week in Vegas. So everyone's probably taking their pitchforks down there. But what is your take? I mean, this is a big change for a lot of people.
It is. It's not. This is disruptive, and I guess I'm of two minds. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'll start with sort of the popular voice of the people who are throwing their hands up or face palming or, whatever your emotional expression is. It is a benefit of being a Microsoft, and we are a gold partner. We do a ton of this work. And so, clearly the move is to get people to start paying for their production use of Microsoft software. Mm-hmm. You can still use, this software free for doing demos and proof of concept and dev. So, does it turn everything upside down? No. What it does is it makes you pay for software and services that Microsoft has said that you mm-hmm. can use to just do your day-to-day work and just create docs and decks and spreadsheets and certain basic cloud capabilities. In our case, we had free internal use rights to Azure AD, some basic use of Office 365. And so I think part of this, so now, yeah, okay, bummer for our organization. It's going to mean, we're not that huge of a company, but it's going to mean tens of thousands of dollars more per year that we're going to pay to Microsoft. For a very large, reseller MSP, ISV, OEM, it's probably, I don't know really how much more, because the IUR wasn't necessarily sort of just carte blanche, mm-hmm. right? I think it used to be, and there used to be a lot more, especially on the server side, but it's really evolving. And I think part of the reason for this change is the software now is being consumed as a service. So it costs Microsoft, it didn't cost Microsoft much to let us use Exchange Server and SharePoint Server and Windows Server when we deployed it on-prem, mm-hmm. right? So we would just take, CDs, DVDs, or download it from the website. They pay a little, cost Microsoft a little bit of bandwidth, but now we're standing it up, we're getting familiar with it. We can extol the virtues of it, even if we're not a big heavy-duty system integrator doing, Office deployments and, big SharePoint integrations and things like that. Yeah. Now that it's all being delivered through Office 365, that's coming as a bigger expense. And so, it is definitely not free for them to give us, Azure AD and Intune and some of these other services for free. In fact, it's probably coming at a major cost, and they're looking at that saying, oh man, this isn't just download once and run internally on your stuff anymore. This is us giving you this, So the argument that's coming through the blogs is, all right, we've got to choose where we invest in our partners. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the calculation here from Microsoft is this is becoming expensive. And there are other things we need to do from probably a lot more from a sales enablement perspective than from a, here you go, here's a great partner benefit on us, drinks on us, right? It's got to go farther than that. So, it hurts us. And part of the pain for us is not just the check that we're going to have to write, but saying, okay, we have deployed things, and I'm sure that lots of listeners, I'd be very curious for feedback from our listeners on this. A lot of the way that we've done things is, sweet, we'll just go with this. It's right here. Yep. Let's just turn it on. Yep. And it's not the most efficient way to use services. So we have to go back and rationalize the way that we are using and consuming some of these services, mm-hmm. and say, okay, we're using a bunch of services that we probably don't use all of or much of. Do we need it at all? And so this the downside for Microsoft, so aside from us saying, okay, we have a tall strategic IT task of rationalizing our use of a bunch of services, it's something that you should do all the time anyway. Fine. We have to write a bigger check. Best case, it's probably going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars either way. Okay. The challenge for Microsoft is, are organizations like mine going to look at this and say, gosh, Azure AD, I wonder if we could go back to just, using a different service, a lower cost service, a more scalable service. Is it better to use Okta than Azure AD? Is it better to use, for example, Smart Deploy, we're adding application deployment, patch management, some basic asset management features. Is what we've got in the can today, which is, simple and relatively early, is that enough that we don't need Intune and by PS, never mind System Center entirely? This is enough because we already have it and they're adding more and they're not asking us for more money. Right. Or the subscription, we're paying, 5% more per year. That's a whole lot better than $30,000 more per year that we'd be on the hook for. Right. I think that's the problem, is that, there are however many tens of thousands, I meant to look up this number, of certified partners, Microsoft certified partners who have these kinds of benefits. Tens of thousands of customers have an incentive to look at competing solutions. And maybe that's a desirable outcome for Microsoft. Maybe at a product management level, it's a little bit too easy to look at this and say, oh, everyone's just using our stuff. We're so successful. Yeah, we've got this. Nobody has any reason to use anything else. All our partners are using this. So now that there are tens of thousands of partners who are looking at their own infrastructure saying, maybe Slack really is better than Teams for us. Maybe we got enough out of the can. You know what I mean? Like, that's especially, speaking of Inspire, and yes, it's going to be, there'll be a lot of noise and a lot of pushback. And I think there'll be a lot of mollification and a lot of compromise. And, here are all these other benefits we're going to give you. Cool. Also the big, kind of, I don't know, pulpit pounding is moving away from selling Windows to selling Teams. Okay, cool. Teams is big and it can be integrated across Office 365, and it basically is the replacement for Skype for Business, which, we're fans of. It's easy. It does all these great things. Cool. But if you dial down your Office 365 subscription, limits your use of Teams, boy, how much of that can I replace with a free implementation of Skype or of Slack, right? I mean, how can I tile in the way that everyone's doing now, these free or very low cost services to replace this thing that's a higher priced implementation that comes with a lot of compromises?
Yeah, the thing that keeps coming up again and again is what you're hitting on, is that the third-party evangelists of Microsoft software, because they're using it for those exact reasons, he says, hey, we can get it, we're selling this stuff, this is a nice bolt-on, are going to go away. There was a very long Twitter thread about all this stuff, and one of the people said, hey, we sell an Azure-related Surface, we're just going to switch to Google Docs HubSpot because it's cheaper. And for Microsoft, that is the worst case scenario, because then those people will go out and say, hey, look, you can use our Azure service up here. And then, for your small business, just use Google Docs and HubSpot. That's what we're using. Why would you pay that money for an E3 or E5 license?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Herein lies the problem. And so, this, I'm sure, these are intelligent people up the street, and they have thought through all of this. And I'm sure that, in classic Microsoft style, they have quantified this, to the screw head and said, no, this is what needs to happen. And sort of the way I think about it is, this is probably what was going to happen anyway. And they're biting the bullet now before it's a multi-billion-dollar pill that they have to swallow. In terms of the hit, they're going to take the $1 billion hit to revenue, or whatever it might be, or partner dissatisfaction, or partner attrition, for that matter, and all of that. I think part of this too, just as they've done with all enterprises, and Microsoft is no exception with their supply chains, is look at consolidation. And I think part of the problem is that there are tons and tons of partners who are partners just for this license benefit.
Yep.
So who's actually out there selling this stuff, right? And kind of, cutting all of the would-be partners that will wave the flag for the free software and getting down to the people who actually help Microsoft make money.
Yep.
I think that there's a legitimate argument to be made there too, that they're looking at seriously, that no one is naive to, inside Microsoft or outside. So it's more than just, partners are so upset because they're losing this use right. The biggest partners, the Accentures and Deloittes and whomever of the world, are paying a ton to Microsoft anyway.
Yep.
Tons, right? We pay a ton to Microsoft anyway through various subscriptions. Our use of the Azure platform for hosting our own services. Some of the backbone of the SmartDeploy cloud services runs on Azure. So we're already, and we've, as a partner, we capitalize on a lot of this free stuff. We have strategically traded up to higher end services because there's value there for us. We are a dynamic CRM shop.
Yeah.
So we're already paying a premium price for the premium service anyway. Yeah, again, it's a chunk more, but for I think for most serious companies, it's not entirely surprising, and just sort of another business change you have to digest.
Yep.
What do you do?
It's one of those things we're going to wait and see here with Inspire happening next week. We will see if Microsoft makes any changes, pulls it back, or more candidly, hopefully gives more information about their thought process behind this. I think that's kind of the thing that is missing. But This is definitely one of those. Stay tuned, because if they're going to talk more about it, it's going to be next week. So we shouldn't have to wait too much longer.
Indeed.
Speaking of not too much longer, as we ended up here on the back of the book, Mr. Aaron, how was your 4th of July? How was your early July? Anything you got for us? Fireworks, grilling, family time?
It was awesome. I went to one of the greatest places in the continental United States, which is Bend, Oregon. And, it's such an unusual place because you have all of these volcanoes and big mountains, and then Bend is relatively flat, right? There's a lot of kind of open, kind of desert-like flat space, even though you have these big alpine peaks that were still covered in snow. But they've been having a very, as we all have here, kind of an unusual spring that's been kind of wet and then dry and warm and then cool. But in their case, wetter than normal, more frequent rain. So it was just lush by Bend standards. The mountain bike trails were in perfect shape.
Oh, good.
Spent time with some friends who have horses and the whole thing. So it was very much, sparklers and apple pie time by Bend standards. It was outstanding. How about you? Any excitement in the Midwest? I mean, it had to be going well, yeah?
Yeah. Well, the biggest excitement happening right now is actually they're drilling up my street, and we're getting, they're repaving it and all that. And right outside, they're destroying it, and my house is shaking a little bit. So that's been the biggest excitement, the fact that I can't park my car in the driveway for about a week. But the 4th was great, just local fireworks going on, sparklers with the kids, grilling out, hanging with the family. A nice cold one out on the very, very humid days, actually, right now. It is 90 Fahrenheit, which is probably about 31, 32 Celsius. So it is spicy, but it's a good time of the year. It's light. It'll stay light in Cincinnati until, actually, I can tell you exactly. Sunset tonight is 9:06 p.m. So it'll stay light out until 9:30, that's the perfect time to be outside with neighbors. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I can't get enough of it. So, Aaron, we very much appreciate you taking time out of your busy week, and everybody else tuning in, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you all right back here next time on the Enterprise Dish.